James Ruzika. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm just getting to the theater now, and you're already set up at the popcorn counter. And
I am Andres Lorente. I'm glad you've at least done your homework. Yes,
you did your no.
What?
No. I was correcting papers for my own students, so I was looking at their homework. I didn't.
You were doing somebody
do
else's homework.
Yeah. Oh no!
So I carefully sent you a whole copy of the New Yorker.
Yeah,
and I knew the carrier pigeons that we talked about last time were not reliable. God damn it!
The birds never came.
So well, luckily I have brought a copy with me here. Do you remember going to lectures and always having to blag notes off the person who actually turned up?
Yes,
I did that all the time.
But I have an excuse. The carrier pigeon shat all over the notes, and I've never used that one before. Where the dog, what do they say? Dog eats your homework or shat on your homework?
The dog ate my homework. The dog ate the pigeon that was carrying the homework. So the thing I sent you. I speak from the New Yorker. This is closer to you than it is to me.
It is. Damn.
So yeah, from the New Yorker from this month. It's an interesting article that I have some questions about. It's an article by Namwali Serpell.
Okay.
She's a novelist. She's a graduate from Yale and Harvard. She won the Arthur C. Clarke Award in, I think, 2018 for her novel The Old Drift, which I have not read. But she wrote an article in the New Yorker a couple of weeks ago, which is called The New Literalism, Plaguing Today's Biggest Movies. And I did have to look up literalism. Is that a word?
Literalism is. I looked up the word literality, and that's a word too. I should... Let me check.
I could tell you're an English teacher. So basically, I've scribbled down a couple of quotes here. So she starts out by just talking about some recent films that she's clearly seen. So she went to see Gladiator II.
Oh yeah.
She went to see Megalopolis.
I think she
needs someone to suggest better films for her to go and
that's
see.
the beginning problem, isn't it? Yeah.
She went to see The Apprentice. Okay, well, I haven't seen that, but it might be fun. But basically, she tells them. She tells the reader that these films, they are all literal, and you kind of think, well, being literal sounds great, but no, she says they're literalist, as in when we say that something is on the nose or heavy-handed, that it hammers away at us or beats a dead horse. To restate the screamingly obvious, and doing this does a kind of violence to art. So basically, she's complaining that these movies are a bit on the nose.
Yeah.
Well, who could possibly have guessed that going in to see Gladiator 2 might have ended up with a little bit of on-the-nose action? So I think like the first scene that she talks about is like there's a scene in Gladiator 2 where somebody escapes from prison and they stab their prisoner to death while yelling, wait a second, he says, wood or steel, a point is still a point. He says, yelling at the corpse. So, I mean, okay, so basically she's complaining about things being a bit on the nose.
On the nose.
Yes. And then she writes, this isn't a new genre, but a new style. And this is when I start to have questions. So she thinks that things being on the nose is new. Each of these films, she says, belongs to its own genre, action-adventure, sci-fi drama, history, respectively, but none of them is interested in the filmic tradition of documentary realism, not even the biopic. It's gotten so bad that lately the highest compliment I can muster for even the best movie is, well, at least it's a movie.
Wow.
And I wonder, maybe, is she just seeing the wrong films, do you think?
In part, yeah. And she's harsher than I am. This makes me look good.
Yeah, this lady could be your new friend.
So she mentioned The Apprentice, you said, which I didn't see that, but it's just very clearly about Donald Trump or...
Yeah, I think so.
I mentioned Donald Trump. I told myself I wasn't going to mention him in the podcast.
Yeah, we are trying to avoid mentioning Donald Trump before being caught by the algorithm.
Yeah,
Google has already told us off once. What are we going to do?
I know. What were the other two? You mentioned two other ones.
And then, so Gladiator II, Megalopolis. And then she does talk about a whole bunch of films that we have seen recently. She talks about The Substance.
Yeah.
She talks about Anora. She talks about Emilia Perez. And I think, I mean, you and I broadly enjoyed those three films maybe in a slightly perverse way, but none of them was subtle.
No, there's no subtlety. So I guess that she's harping about not enough subtlety in in film today.
I think in mainstream big budget cinema. But the thing that surprises me most is she says there's not enough subtlety in big budget mainstream cinema.
Well,
and this is a new thing.
Has there ever been, though? That's not. I don't think that's the goal of mainstream cinema. It's meant to be very palatable, and I think appeal to a very wide, even international audience. So
I think that's exactly it. I think. Of
course, it's on the nose.
I think it's just. I think she's made a category error, basically.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
And it's and we, of all people, love it when things are subtle, and we love it when things are understated, don't we? We love a character expressed through action.
Yes.
We love scenes without dialogue.
Yeah.
We love subtext. We love all of that. But we are also kind of aware that we've been watching Amelia Perez and The Substance.
Yeah.
So it's it may be a mistake to expect too much.
It's almost like let's say looking for gold in an outhouse or something like that, right? It's not a good search. It's messy.
It's interesting because as the article goes on, she kind of stops being annoyed about films being on the nose, and then she complains about The Brutalist being filmed in CinemaScope, and then she complains that some bits of I'm Still Here are using Super 8 footage, and then she's annoyed at Nickel Boys for filming some things in POV. I think basically she just doesn't like films. Yeah. I remember as a boy, my parents used to buy the Daily Express, which was supposedly a reputable newspaper in the 1950s and 60s, and then it's become a dreadful rag now. But the film critic in the Daily Express was, I think, Ian Christie, and he used to slag off absolutely everything. He hated films. He just didn't like films, and yet he got a job as a film critic. And I think she seems to be closely related to Ian Christie. She just seems to hate films. Not sure why she's writing about films. Although I have a theory, which I'll come on to later.
A little bit related to me, though, too. I definitely hate a lot of films, too. So she's after my heart.
Yeah, but you don't hate every film.
I mean, I haven't seen The Brutalist. CinemaScope sounds cool. I think that's a great idea. And as far as I understand, that's probably a good choice for that film. What I understood is just it's too long. And maybe not.
It's not too wide, it's too long. Yeah, exactly. Complaining about the wrong dimension.
The dimensions are not the problem. Super 8 in the Bob Dylan film I thought was great. And they just gave you it just even made that story world even stronger, I thought, because you had some stuff that looked like it was from the era.
Yeah, it's not complete unknown. It's I'm Still Here, the Brazilian film about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Oh, yeah. Boy, my head is really not on today. I'm Still Here. No, great. Again, yeah. I mean, that's a film that's supposed to take place in 1972, I believe. So
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's appropriate. Yeah. Wow. And then I haven't seen. I don't know what she's talking about with the POV and Nickel Boys because I haven't seen that yet. But it's on my list, on my short list. I think I like to see it when directors make choices like that. They're kind of big decisions, and if you mess it up, you mess it up, but you've got to own it. But I think those are fine. It's an interesting article, though. So she's gone from literalism to sort of complaining about certain artistic choices.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's just like, well, nothing is good enough for me. I mean, like the initial bit of her argument, I can understand how there is a little bit too much on the nose writing.
Yeah.
In modern cinema, but it's not omnipresent.
Yeah,
I mean, flow is not on the nose, is it? Robot Dream's not on the nose. No blooming dialogue at all. I think we have seen plenty of pretty subtle and interesting subtextual pictures. Even in those films which have been broadly otherwise commercial.
Yeah.
I know I liked it a lot more than you, but the Alien film that we watched, Romulus, last year, I think, surprisingly, interestingly subtextual, and I think, unfairly maligned. I think there is intelligent writing going on. You might need to look a little bit harder for it, but you might need to temper your expectations when you buy your ticket.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I think she's just chosen the wrong films. They're very easy to prove her point, I suppose, but they're not indicative of even a majority of films. I don't think there's so many more non-commercial films than there are the big budget films. I mean, I appreciate her point. I actually like it a lot. That I think in general as a culture, at least the United States, has become much less subtle. So everything seems much more on the nose these days. And a lot of that, I think, even comes out of sort of the reality television and the social media, and then just everyone's on camera saying exactly what they feel all the time. So I think she's on to something, and it is discouraging to someone who thinks they have a higher intellect or more speculative intellect, I guess, or more discerning in tastes or whatnot. Because when something's so obvious to you, it sort of becomes an insult to your imagination that you couldn't think of these things on your own. That you couldn't be taken by a less on the nose clue. You could figure the story out. So I get that. And novelists are definitely wordy people. They really appreciate the word and novels. I think if you come, I don't know if she's specifically a novelist or not, but novels and film are really different art forms, I think.
Yep.
You get you get the whole visual impact of a film, and we've said it again and again, like good films should not be that wordy. So if you're looking for, like really subtle messages that can be carried out over pages and pages and really told kind of carefully and skillfully in a novel, that's not the way films operate. So I like her larger point is that there's nothing subtle in this country anymore, and probably that's the way of the world too. And then I think also just the fact that we're so obviously making films for people everywhere, just kind of broadcasts it. So I think you have to make films a lot easier to understand for the international audience, just so that everyone has access to it, I guess. That's all true. I think the thing I mostly object to is this notion that this is a new phenomenon, because I just don't think it is. I went to my big book of film quotes. Yeah. I was kind of thinking, like, the idea of kind of stuff being on the nose. Surely that's not new. No. And so I kind of flicked through at random, and I basically the first quotes that my eyes landed on were things like, I've written them down here: "Toto, I've a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore." Yeah. This is not subtle writing, but it's a tremendously memorable. Yeah, great line.
"Here's another nice mess you've got me into." That's just Laurel and Hardy explaining to the audience exactly what has just happened. "Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you?" This is this dialogue is this is all very quotable dialogue, but none of it is subtle. It gets better. The next one I wrote down: "Soylent Green is people." That's the entire plot and twist of the film shouted out in 4 words at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Or like the closing quote for Planet of the Apes, where he shouts, "You maniacs, you blew it up. Damn you, goddamn you all to hell." Oh. It's I love the ending to that movie, but it's not subtle and it's not understated.
Yeah.
David Mamet, there's a book of essays by him that I've got, which is called, I think, Make Believe Town. And in one of the essays, he summarizes. He says that all American screenwriting is basically, here we are walking down these stairs that we're trying to get to the bottom of. It's kind of it's always been the case that we've been to see films where people are openly stating exactly what's happening on screen.
Yeah,
people are openly, outwardly telling you what their feelings or thoughts are, laying out their plans, or telling the audience, how they are related to the other characters on screen. It's always been a thing. This is not new, and I agree. It would be nice to see less of it, but I don't think you can claim that that it's new for 2025. Cinema has always been this way, isn't it? I think so too, and I think good cinema generally eliminates it as much as possible. So there's showing, there's telling. It's a sin to show and tell at the same time. Basically, that's kind of the general rule. And if you can show as much as possible in pictures, then you are making a film. If you're telling a lot, that's more theater, I guess. Or radio,
and radio, other art forms, I guess. But and then obviously writing, you're sort of doing both at the same time. So maybe you're definitely doing a fair bit of telling. But again, you should be showing through words as opposed to being through pictures with a novel or short story or something.
The novel is the door to the inner world, isn't it? It's it's the only medium in which you're allowed to have an internal sort of monologue. The only medium through which it kind of works through either an internal monologue or like an omniscient narrator.
And I guess it doesn't sound like either cheating or sinning if you're doing it in a novel, because you sort of have to do that as a writer. You're giving the mental state of the characters as well as you're giving them dialogue, and you're sort of showing them So like novel writing, you're doing all three things at the same time, and probably a whole lot more, but those are the things I can think of at the moment. Whereas in film, I would say you can't really show and tell at the same time. I've done it myself. I can see it on the page and say, no, don't do that. That's a sin.
It's also a bit of a mistake to build up an entire argument about the state of modern cinema based off a screening of Megalopolis. Because I don't think it's going to leave you feeling particularly positive about anything about modern cinema. But I was going to tell you, I think there was a little reveal at the end of this article.
Okay.
So her final paragraph is about Conclave.
Oh yeah.
So she gets to the end of her piece, and she kind of says, "Oh, but the only film that doesn't break all these rules, the only film that's really, really good, is Edward Berger's Conclave, written by Peter Strawn, based on Robert Harris's 2016 novel about the selection of a new pope." She praises Conclave to the skies as the least on the nose film of the year. Personally, I disagree with that, and I think Conclave is pretty on the nose. I don't think it's a host of. I don't think I saw a great deal of tremendously subtle and clever writing in Conclave. But I got to that paragraph and I thought, wait a second. If someone bunged her a few quid and told her, "Hey, write a piece which big ups Conclave in the New Yorker, because we are hoping to score at the Oscars." And your little article here may push a few Academy voters over the edge. So I'm not sure whether this was originally published before the Academy voted or after, but it may well have been written before the Academy voted. In which case, I just got this with no disparagement, and this is merely an allegation with no meat behind it. But no meat behind it, no weight behind it. What am I talking about? The weight of meat. But I suspect that it wouldn't surprise me if I learned that she'd been asked to improve Conclave's chances at the Oscars with this little article in the New Yorker.
I love that cynicism. I love that. You haven't seen Conclave. Here, I think one thing is that I haven't seen a lot of the films that she's writing about, and I think she just needs to see different films. I think maybe she should check out the Two Reel Cinema Club playlist.
Ah, yes, the new curators of modern cinema for a modern audience.
Yeah, I think that would make a big difference in her world.
I might email her and ask her to, well, A, listen to the podcast, obviously, but B, we should just say, go and see some better films. Go on.
Yeah, I think
recommend something.
I think, it's you're making, you're trying to make, another metaphor with crap. Trying to make a beautiful salad out of crap. It's not a very good metaphor, but I think you get the idea. I think it's mostly a matter of just trying to see some better films and lowering expectations probably when you're going to see some of those blockbusters, because those are all kind of big productions anyway. I don't know that. I guess they're not blockbusters unless there's lots of action and all that, but. I think you're almost holding the films themselves to too high a standard, I guess.
Yeah, that's our job.
They're not literature, but they are. She's looking at them for literalism, I guess. So,
I think, $5 to the first of us who can use literalism in an ordinary sentence during conversation this week. That would be $5 hard to earn. It'll be hard to earn.
You can't count me out. I don't need the $5.
So it turns out you didn't do the homework, but actually you're probably richer for it. So
perhaps.
Well done. You probably made the right choice. Rather wasting half an hour reading this rather ridiculous article.
Yeah, she might be richer for just choosing some different films. And I'm sorry I didn't read her article, but I'm glad you did. You did a great job summarizing it for me and for the community here.
So I'm glad to do your homework anytime.
Okay, that's what you're saying. So I have to pay you the $5 for doing my. I get it. That was subtle. See how subtle that was? Not literal
That was
at
subtle.
all.
Now that was subtle. Yeah, you want subtle? Come here.